That disturbance you're feeling in the nerdy force? That's me, Mr. Cack, and I'm here with Rage You Nerds, and today we're doing the Rage review for Ahsoka, Episode 4. Alright, so I've done a Rage review for episodes 1 and 2 and 3 all together in one big cluster. So this is going to be my first attempt at doing one solo action shot by itself. And I've decided what I'm going to do this time around is I'm going to let the episode play out, and it's not necessarily a live reaction so much as it is I'm just going to talk about the things that I want to talk about within those moments. But the episode itself doesn't start out pretty exciting. Crash landed, or they've been, marooned on planet Cetos. We know that the ring of power is floating in the air. We know there's a witch, there's the lion, there's a wardrobe. There's a lot going on. We have a sassy droid, we have a sassy purple head, we have a sassy Snips. And, spoilers. Just saying right now, yes, actually, let me get to that. This is a spoiler alert. What I'm going to talk about will probably cover some spoilers. My intentionality isn't to spoil the whole episode for you, but because I'm going to be reviewing all of it, I am going to talk pretty in depth about it. So if you haven't seen the episode, go check out the episode and come back and check out this review. If you want to take your chances, check out this review. Now, I will say one of the things that I really loved about this episode, and I genuinely really liked a lot about this episode, is this entry point conversation we have between Sabine and Ahsoka. So this conversation between Ahsoka and Sabine is probably one of the tropes I love the most about Star Wars and any Star Wars properties, and that's the conflict or duality within us all. Ahsoka has probably sat down, processed her feelings on what to do, when to do it, and what it means to stop Morgan and Baylan from opening this pathway and going after Grand Admiral Thrawn. It means never seeing Ezra Bridger again, or it more succinctly means that it's very, very unlikely they will ever see Ezra again. On the flip side, if they allow this to happen, it opens the door that Ezra can return. Is that something they're willing to risk? Ahsoka has clearly thought about it. Sabine has not. Ahsoka has asked Sabine, have you thought about it? And Sabine says that she would do what was best for whomever, but I don't know if Ahsoka believes that. I don't believe Sabine believes that. But again, this is one of those conversation points, this whole duality arc within Star Wars. I believe one of the biggest faults the sequel trilogy had is there wasn't a really good duality aspect there. They tried to do it with Rey, they tried to do it with Kylo Ren. It never landed right. There was just a lack of atmosphere. Here within this episode, you have plenty of atmosphere. There is a legitimate feeling of, I don't know what Sabine's going to do, even though I feel very firmly she's going to do the wrong thing. But she's going to do the wrong thing for the right reason. And again, this complex morality, I think, is such a beautiful storyline thing, because it causes you to think as the audience of, I know she did it, but why'd she do it? It's not black and white. It's not cut and dry. It's gray. And Freddie Prinze Jr. said there's no gray Jedi, so we won't get too caught up in that color choice. And so after the kind of cold open kickoff, we now have Huyang outside working on the ship, trying to repair it enough to where they can send out some kind of communication or transmit a distress beacon, something to let someone know that they're there and they're in trouble and there's something bad happening. You see Sabine getting geared up, ready for battle. What I like about this is it's just a gentle reminder that she is Mandalorian. She has all the Mandalore garb. She's got her little guns, her little side wrist things, and her helmet. So while we go from seeing Sabine getting ready and realizing that her mind's just a little bit out of focus, and Ahsoka's picking up on it, we pick back up on this conversation that again is building towards the climax of this episode. And that's Ahsoka genuinely understanding her apprentice, Sabine, but Sabine not being fully aware of her feelings yet. Sabine knows deep down in her heart Ezra is her primary focus, but she's trying to say all the right things to Ahsoka to show that she's ready, that she's willing to do what's necessary for the greater good. Ahsoka, I have to believe Ahsoka realizes that that's not the case, but Ahsoka's a little bit blind too, which is very much a parallel to every other Jedi that has a fallen apprentice, is there's just this belief. Next up, we have Huyang and something that I love. We are getting one of the things I cherish and crave the most, and that's a mother trucking droid battle. I don't know what this other droid's name is, but Huyang's giving him the business, but he's a little bit better of a boxer, so Huyang's kind of getting his butt whooped there for a bit, but he figures it out. He's able to think on his feet and get out of the trouble. This is just another one of those scenes that show you how cool Ahsoka and Sabine are as they whip out some lightsabers and some blasters and use some Mandalorian tricks. I mean, this was just basically to show you that they're capable fighters. So nothing incredibly wrong here. The action kind of seemed a little bit wonky at times. It seemed like there was a lot going on, and I felt like I missed some stuff because of, I guess, just how quick all of the editing camera changes were. But for the most part, generally enjoyable. I like Ahsoka's lightsabers. I like how they look in contrast to this kind of darker setting of the planet. We get an ominous yet foreboding warning from Huyang.
May I make one request of you both? Stay together.
And I can't imagine we won't Chekhov gun that one at some point this episode. I wonder if that comes back to bite anyone in the metallic butt. Huyang is probably one of my favorite characters in this story thus far. We have a small moment here with Hera, Syndulla, and her son, and Chopper, and it leads to Hera trying to get back involved in the main plot. Hera is not fine being part of subplot B. She wants to be part of subplot A, gosh darn it. So she's trying to find a way to get there. Realistically, Hera's gonna go stand up for her friends, even though she's defying the New Republic's orders. Who cares? The New Republic's a joke. But she goes out there and she brings some starfighters with her. We'll see how that goes. But it's nice to see that this wasn't some prolonged game of cat and mouse, or that they were just oblivious. I do appreciate that Hera took initiative to go be with her friends. Sometimes shows like this, I feel like, take the more alien approach, and, you know, they'll make it to where a character who would, in most circumstances, go to their friends won't. They'll find a way to just, like, orders are orders, and just not show up. So good job, Hera. Also, Hera looks like she has a butt on her head, and wood. So the shot of the hyperspace, the hyperdrive ring above Cetos, and then the panning down, reminds me that we had an attempt at a live-action Halo that did not have a Halo ring in it, and I hate that so much. This just shows me that we could have done a pretty good Halo live-action adaptation if maybe someone other than Paramount Plus was running it. Just saying. And then that goes to this next thing, as Morgan uses her witchcraft to summon the orb and make the star map again. This reminds me so much. The green flame, the use of witchcraft, but in space, the lighting, even the armor used by Baylan and Shin, all of that just has this Destiny vibe. I don't know if anyone remembers or is currently playing Destiny or Destiny 2, the video game, but this episode just reminded me a lot of, oh man, we could probably do a live action Destiny series, and it could be pretty good, but again, it depends on what studio runs with it. And I know people don't want to hear this, but with how this looks, I wouldn't mind if Disney got their hands on a Destiny live-action adaptation, because all of this stuff looks like it came from Destiny. I am under the firm belief that the production and design team for this episode are avid Destiny players, and just were like, hey, you know, they did this in Destiny, let's just do this. Because there's a lot of look and feel that feels very Destiny. And now we're getting another popular trope in the Star Wars universe, and that is a lightsaber battle. We have Shin versus Sabine, we have Marrok versus Ahsoka, and there was 2 points of interest here. You essentially have the apprentice of Baylan versus the apprentice of Ahsoka. We're not really sure what's Shin's deal, but Shin's just kind of a butthole for whatever reason. I'm sure we'll find some tragic backstory eventually, but right now, I'm fine with her just being kind of an ass without an excuse. I don't know if don't humanize her. Just make her an ass. It's fine. Some people are just asses. Marrok, on the other hand, has intrigue and mystery, because Marrok is clad in armor and wearing a helmet. Marrok has all of the Inquisitor garb, but who is Marrok? What is Marrok? Could Marrok be a character from the video game universe that had a name very similar? I don't know, but we watched them and Ahsoka do battle, which made me think, okay, Merrick's gonna be pretty tough to beat. And we've already seen Ahsoka versus Merrick once. When Ahsoka was trying to track down the star map, after losing it, they encounter each other, and Merrick is just kind of there to stall Ahsoka while they get away from the planet. Didn't beat Ahsoka, but definitely had the upper hand. Speaking of having the upper hand, Shin is walloping the crap out of Sabine, and I think it does a good job of showing you that while both of them are maybe new, they're apprentices, that there is a difference between the skill level. She has a ways to go, but the balancing between being a Jedi and her Mandalorian fighting tactics and skills definitely keeps her on par with Shin. I think that that's also very good. We then transition back to Merrick versus Ahsoka in another thing I love so much when Star Wars gets it right. That is the homage. Japanese samurai and anime, right? You have these two opposing forces with their bladed weapons, and there's this tension mounting. They're staring each other down, and then at the drop of a hat, they both charge at each other, pass by one another, and there's a brief moment of silence. And then all of a sudden, someone either lowers their weapon or sheaths their blade, while the other one, is cut or disemboweled or whatever. It's a classic trope. So many, instances of being used. And guess what? I loved when it was done here. Now, where I stopped loving it is when we're looking and it's like, oh no, Merrick, he got injured. But maybe that means he'll pop off his helmet and we'll see who it is. What we actually get is that we find out that Merrick is just a sentient fart. I may be missing... There may be a Star Wars explanation for that I'm missing because I'm not a super Star Wars nerd. I'm much more of a mainstream Star Wars nerd. But yeah, Merrick just kind of became a greenish blue fart that came out of his body. Now, the one thing I don't like about the resolution of this is we now have our heroes, and Shin is the only opposition left. And Sabine said, hey, go ahead, I'll take care of this. And while that is very much an anime trope of, it's still my battle, I'll handle it, wouldn't it have been better if Ahsoka and Sabine worked together and just easily mowed down Shin and then went on? Would it have consumed time? Yes, so I guess under the uncertainty of not knowing how much time you possibly have to stop the map from giving the coordinates, that it makes sense to split up. But, I mean, a very wise robot told us not to do this.
Stay together. You always did better that way, in my opinion.
Our pizza pie is slowly growing. We're getting really close to seeing the way there. Again, all of this looks very much like Destiny. There's so much. What we're about to get, though, is... Okay, so I know I've said a lot of positive things about this episode so far, but this next moment... This battle between Baylan and Ahsoka is so good because not only is it a lightsaber battle, but it's good versus bad in the Force, but it's genuinely pleasant to see a capable and interesting villain in Star Wars. It's been a while. Baylan comes off as an upgraded Count Dooku to me. So there's a lot of people that really love Count Dooku, and I'm one of them. I loved Count Dooku from the movies. I really liked him better in the Clone Wars because you get to see him more capable. Baylan comes off as a hardened, no-nonsense, maybe a bit sprier version of what Count Dooku was in the prequel trilogy. And I love that he doesn't necessarily get overwhelmed by Ahsoka. There's a balance between them, and I appreciate that not only is he trying to stall her. He's not necessarily trying to win, but he's also running his mouth a whole lot. And to me, that makes him so more intriguing because I don't necessarily know if I fully understand what his intentions are. He wants to bring Thrawn, but it's not so much because of Thrawn. He knows that Thrawn will cause a war, but it's not so much the war itself. He, for whatever reason, there's something that he sees that to get to it, there has to be this chaos brought on by the reemergence of Thrawn. So I am very curious as to what his ultimate thing is saying. Now, Ahsoka has one of the coldest lines in this episode.
Anakin spoke highly of you.
Interesting. He never mentioned you.
That's such a sick burn. I do appreciate that they still, and Rosario Dawson does a really good job of this, of capturing kind of that punk attitude that Ahsoka had when we first met her in Star Wars Clone Wars. Sarcasm is just a key to my heart. But we get a very genuinely good lightsaber battle here. Ray Stevenson, rest in peace. I love his mannerisms. I love the way he reacts and acts using a lightsaber. There's something both fluid and mechanical in the way that he wields it is just appealing to watch. But there's just something about him. He comes off as a knight. I mean, really. And he probably was a Jedi Knight at some point, or maybe we'll find some tragic backstory about how he was a Padawan that like failed out or whatever. But I like Baylan so much because just everything about him is not only cool, but like, I don't know, the character is just intriguing. And I feel like it's been a while since there's been a villain that I've been genuinely intrigued by in any Star Wars property. The sequel trilogy didn't really have a lot, especially when we found out it was Palpatine all along. Ahsoka grabs the map, burning her hand because the damn witchcraft involved in all of it. So now she's got a hurt hand, so it's been heavily implied that she won't be able to use 2 lightsabers to continue this battle. Sabine is smoke bomb ninja'd by Shin, and Shin disappears, which then leads to a moment where Shin makes it back to the map first, which causes Ahsoka to lose focus on the battle with Baylan. So she then has to lash out against Shin as kind of retribution for her apprentice getting done in. And then shortly after, her apprentice shows. But again, the commentary, the dialogue from Baylan is just so interesting.
It didn't need to come to this. But you know no other way.
Because the way he's saying stuff, one, it could just be him playing mind games, but there's also this sorrowfulness to all of it as well. He's like, it didn't have to be this way. Why are you choosing to go down this path? And I really like how he keeps accusing her of being someone that only knows the way of destruction. For all of Ahsoka's good, Ahsoka does have a past that's marred in death and destruction, and her legacy tied to Anakin, who eventually becomes Darth Vader, who just has a mountain of corpse that he sits upon. There is this notion of, even if he's just doing it to agitate and get under her skin, there is very much a reality to what he's saying. Her last words before falling were, destroy the map. Did Sabine destroy the map? So I liked at first, it looked like there was going to be a battle. Baylan didn't seem like he was taking it super seriously. There was the mechanical, like game mechanic blocking of the blasters with his lightsaber, but then he very quickly picked up on the uncertainty in the heart of Sabine, and he masterfully latched onto that and manipulated the crap out of her. Again, Ray Stevenson, rest his soul, did so much good with this character. Baylan Skoll is quickly becoming one of my favorite Star Wars characters, extended universe of it all, because man, he's not only a badass when it comes to fighting, but his manipulation game's on point. His manipulation game's up there with Palpatine, and we haven't seen a lot of really good manipulators. Baylan was able to masterfully corrupt Sabine, and I don't think Sabine has fallen to the dark side at all, but I think that Baylan noticed that within her heart there was this desire to save Ezra, and she's gonna follow that path to get to Ezra, and it may lead her down to a path of ruin, but in her heart she feels like she's making the right decision. We then get Phoenix Squad and Hera appearing before the Halo ring, I mean the hyper speed circle drive thing, and Morgan just says, all right, jump. Like, one of the droids is like, they're in our way, and she's like, I don't care. What? We're going to another galaxy. We're going to a galaxy even further away. And they just jump. While the subplot of Hera in the New Republic has always been the weakest of all of this story so far, I did like the subtle nod that her son is potentially force sensitive. So for those that don't know, Hera's son was fathered by a former Jedi. Oh, hello there. Maybe the Force is unlocked in this one. I think that's awesome, because I think eventually what the Ahsoka series has to build towards is a potential reestablishing of the Jedi Order. Having a young future generation Jedi right there is interesting, because he seems to have felt the disturbance that this is going to cause. And I think that again is one of those subtle hints that, man, even the Force knows that what's about to happen is bad, because that's what the Force is, right? It's a big connected force that ties them all together. So it's not necessarily him exuding force, it's him manipulating the force around him, or being manipulated by the force around him. So the Force basically told him, hey, something bad's about to happen. And I did like that. I did like that. Again, I'm not the biggest fan of all this stuff. So we saw Ahsoka fall, but did she land on a rock? Did she land in the rocks? Did she land in the water? Where did she land? And when we see her again, it looks like that maybe she's in water, but then she stands up and we find out that we're not in no water no more. We're in what Star Wars likes to call the world between worlds. Now, this place hasn't been fully explored in a live action medium. Star Wars Rebels and I believe Clone Wars also had the world between worlds as kind of a plot point for a few episodes. For those of us that are casual viewers, or those of us that are just watching the live action movies and series, this is our first time really seeing and really starting to get the idea of what this world between world is, and they haven't done anything to explain it just yet. It's just the visual imagery there is very much how it was portrayed in Star Wars Rebels. And then we get someone I was not expecting just yet, but you knew he was always there. We get, and this is a spoiler, so I warned you at the beginning of the episode, we get someone saying, hello, Snips. And for those that are uninitiated into this, Anakin Skywalker used to refer to Ahsoka as Snips. And Ahsoka immediately recognizes the voice. She turns around and she sees, and we see, Hayden Christensen reprising his role as Anakin Skywalker. Oh, and you even get the subtle, you get like the music, but then you get this subtle tease of the Darth Vader theme at the very end. Oh, it's so good. We're not sure. For those that are just watching and don't understand where we're at, you're taking it for face value of, is she dead? Is she seeing ghosts? Like, what's going on here? Is she just knocked out and having a lucid dream? But within this space, we're not sure what we're getting in terms of Anakin Skywalker. Are we getting the Anakin that she knew before he fell to the dark side? Or are we getting the remnants of the dark side Anakin? I think it's going to be fascinating to find out what comes of this interaction between her and her old master. But I am here for it. I am so here for all of the deep, weird dive into especially the mysticism of Star Wars. Witchcraft of space people and the other worlds and other dimensions, all of that stuff is always insanely interesting to me. So I am very curious to see what we have here with Anakin. Is this going to be something that helps Ahsoka, or is this a dangerous element for Ahsoka? And I think it could go either way, and I think that makes it very exciting. Hayden Christensen. I am so glad that not only is Hayden Christensen getting a chance to reprise his entry point in Star Wars, but he seems to be genuinely enjoying it, and fans seem to be enjoying seeing him come back. So we got a small taste of him in the Obi-Wan series. Now we're getting him back. I think it's awesome. For someone that received so much hate and criticism because of the prequel trilogy, whether you liked Hayden Christensen's Anakin or not, the dude gave us a character that is iconic. It feels like he's genuinely a nice person. So again, I'm glad to see him both back and seemingly getting embraced very welcomely by the fandom. A fandom that kind of spurned him in the beginning. And we saw it with Jar Jar Binks' actor as well. It's Dave Filoni, if nothing else, is kind of slowly trying to heal some old Star Wars wounds. And I really need him to go and heal the sequel trilogy wounds too. I thought this was one of the best episodes of Star Wars TV, period. Honestly, I felt like the stakes, because there was actual stakes in this episode. We were basically given a countdown for when something's going to happen, and if that countdown went off, that something happened. So I really like this episode, and I would stack it up against some of the actual feature-length films in terms of the atmosphere, the stakes, the pacing, the music, the visuals, the fighting are probably better than certain movies within the Star Wars franchise. I'm looking at you, sequel trilogy. But I think this episode is the best of all the worlds that you could have essentially with Star Wars universe. Really, the only thing we were missing was a prominent and good space dogfight, but I'll be fine with that because episode 3 gave us that, so we don't need one of those every episode. Ray Stevenson is just a freaking gem, and it is so sad that he passed, but he he did some damn good work with this character. I wish this episode could have been the first episode of the series somehow, because this if I would have watched this episode as episode 1, you would have heard a completely different tone from me about Ahsoka. In fact, there would be a completely different tone about all of the series. I would be so hyped about the series, but I'm not going to discredit by the fact that we're now here at the midway point, that we have a really good hook to really land us for. I am genuinely interested to see how this series is going to finish off. Episode 1, episode 2, I didn't know if I was going to make it through all the episodes of the season. This episode 3 was a nice build up. Episode 4 was a perfect execution. But what do you think? Have you been enjoying Ahsoka? What'd you think about episode 4? What were your favorite moments? What didn't you like? What was missing? What would you have liked to see? And where do you think we're going as we head into episode 5? This has been Mr. Cack. This has been Rage You Nerds, and that has been a Rage review on Ahsoka episode 4. See you on the next one. Boo!